Xerox spent billions on research that invented the modern computer, then watch someone else get rich off it. In 1970, Xerox Corporation was a cash machine. They owned the photocopier market. Revenues were climbing, profits were fat, and they made a decision that would haunt their balance sheet for decades. They opened a research laboratory in Palo Alto, California, and gave it an almost unlimited budget to figure out what computing would look like in the future. Here's the trick: they had no idea what they'd actually built until it was too late to profit from it. Exhibit 1: the graphical user interface. Before 1981, computers were text-based. You typed commands, you squinted at green monochrome screens. At PARC, researchers built something radical: a computer with a mouse, windows, icons, and pull-down menus. It was intuitive, it was visual, it looked nothing like anything on the market. Xerox executives saw the prototype and didn't know what to do with it. Exhibit 2: the Ethernet. Xerox PARC didn't just invent the graphical interface. They also pioneered networked computing, the technology that lets machines talk to each other. Ethernet. It's the backbone of every office, every data center, every connected device today. PARC researchers developed it, published it, and essentially gave it to the world. The money? It went nowhere. Exhibit 3: object-oriented programming. This one's more abstract, but it matters for the money trail. PARC researchers developed programming languages and methodologies that treated software like modular building blocks. That concept, that philosophy, became the foundation of how software engineers think about code today. Apple, Microsoft, and every Silicon Valley startup that came after borrowed from this playbook. So where did the money actually go? Follow the balance sheet. Xerox invested roughly $100 million into PARC over its first decade. Adjusted for inflation, that's nearly $700 million in today's currency. They hired the best computer scientists in the world. They built state-of-the-art labs. They gave researchers freedom to think. And then the receipts stopped adding up. In 1979, Steve Jobs visited PARC. This is where the real story bends. He walked through the labs, saw the graphical interface, and understood its value instantly. Xerox executives had walked through those same halls. They'd seen the same prototypes, but they couldn't translate innovation into business. Jobs could. He took the concept, refined it, and 3 years later, the Macintosh changed computing forever. Here's the trick: Xerox didn't fail because PARC wasn't innovative. They failed because they couldn't see how innovation fit their business model. Xerox made money selling photocopiers and services. Computers were a distraction, a cost center. When PARC proved that personal computing was possible, Xerox had no mechanism to commercialize it. The organizational machinery didn't exist. Exhibit 4: the Alto. This was PARC flagship computer built in 1973. It had a graphical display. It ran networked applications. By almost every measure, it was superior to machines that wouldn't reach the market for another decade. Xerox built fewer than 2,000 of them. They were used internally, shared with universities, and then quietly shelved. The Xerox 8010 information system came to market in 1981. It was called the Star. It had everything the Alto had: the interface, the networking, the vision. It cost $16,500. That's over $50,000 in today's money. No one bought it. Xerox had invented the future but priced it like a luxury product in a market that didn't yet exist. Meanwhile, Apple released the Macintosh in 1984 at $495. One-tenth the price, better marketing, a vision that made sense to regular people. Within 5 years, Apple had captured the imagination of the market. By the 1990s, the Macintosh had become the standard for creative professionals. Xerox had invented it. Apple had monetized it. The patent trail tells the story. Xerox held patents on much of what PARC invented, but they didn't defend them aggressively. They didn't license them strategically. In some cases, they didn't even fully understand what they owned. A forensic accountant looking at Xerox's patent portfolio would see billions of dollars of intellectual property that never generated meaningful licensing revenue. By the 1990s, Xerox's position in computing had evaporated. They'd spent a decade trying to compete in the personal computer market and failed. Microsoft was dominating software. Intel was dominating chips. Apple was dominating design. Xerox retreated back to what they knew: copying machines. The company that had invented the future was now a footnote in it. Here's what the balance sheet actually shows. Xerox spent roughly $1.5 billion on computing research and commercialization between 1970 and 1990, again, adjusted for inflation. The direct revenue generated from those efforts was minimal. The licensing fees were negligible. The market share they captured, essentially zero. From a pure accounting standpoint, it was a catastrophic return on investment. But here's where the real trick reveals itself. The world's return on Xerox's investment was extraordinary. The graphical interface became the standard. Ethernet became the global standard for networking. Object-oriented programming became the dominant paradigm. Xerox had essentially funded the entire architecture of modern computing and then handed it to everyone else. Xerox's core problem wasn't a lack of innovation. It was organizational misalignment. PARC operated like a university research center. The rest of Xerox operated like a manufacturing company. The two cultures couldn't talk to each other. Innovation happens when brilliant people have resources and freedom. Monetization happens when you have distribution, pricing strategy, and market timing. Xerox had one. They couldn't execute the other. The forgotten innovation wasn't forgotten by the world. It was forgotten by the company that created it. Every graphical interface you use today, Windows, Mac OS, iOS, Android, traces its lineage back to PARC. Every network device, every modular software system, the money didn't flow to Xerox, but the impact flowed everywhere else. This is what happens when a company can't see beyond its own business model. Xerox was so focused on photocopiers that they couldn't imagine a world where computers mattered more. They invested in the future. They just couldn't recognize it when it arrived. And that's the full accounting of where the money went, into the foundation of an entire industry that someone else built on top of. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research. Subscribe to decode the business decisions that shape the companies we use every day, because understanding how money actually flowed is how you see the patterns everyone else misses. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research.